Just Energy with naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise. We have learned from Einstein's theories that matter and energy are one. Physicists believe that all systems in nature have their own particular way of vibrating. From the swing of a pendulum to the waves in the ocean to the light that brightens the sky each day, each of these oscillates at its own unique rate. In the same way, things such as rocks and minerals vibrate very slowly and at speeds that are imperceptible to us. Living things such as plants, animals, and man vibrate faster and appear to be alive. The same holds true for every thought, feeling, event, or word we speak. Each has its own frequency or rate of vibration. What many of us don't realize is if we take everything in our own universe down to its simplest form, it is all just energy. Join Dr. Rita as she explores questions such as, what are we made of? Why do we get sick? How can I live a more balanced and whole life? Call in and talk to her and her thought-provoking guests. Send us your questions and get the help you need to move beyond any obstacles or challenges that may be affecting your life, right from the source. So stay tuned and explore your possibilities.
Hello and welcome to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for tuning into the show today. Oh my God, we are going to be talking about crop circles. Now, we've never done about crop circles, and to share information is Suzanne Taylor, who has a new movie out called What on Earth? Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. It is amazing. A few announcements. So as you know, we have a new program that we started with the show. We are now doing a mind yoga question of the week. So last week our question was, what ancient Egyptian god took over or was the god of the underworld before Osiris took over the position? Well, we're going to find out the answer to that and the winner of the prize, which was the Pyramid Code, after the break. We'll also be asking a new question of the week, and the winner will be getting a copy of Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places, a field guide to stone circles, crop circles, ancient tombs, and supernatural landscapes by Brian Houghton. And so we'll be doing that later in the show, so you need to stay tuned and put your thinking cap on or be ready to stretch your mind with our Mind Yoga question of the week. For those people that live in Dallas, the Wellness Expo is going to be at the Addison Conference Center. I'll be there. I'll be speaking about ghostesses on Sunday as well as doing readings all day, Saturday, and Sunday. That's all my announcements for today. So let me tell you a little bit about Suzanne and get her on the show because, well, as you know, I have my pages and pages of questions and only a limited amount of time to get through all of them. Okay, so Suzanne Taylor, director, producer of What on Earth? Inside the Crop Circle Mystery, has been involved with film since she graduated Phi Beta Kappa and summa cum laude from NYU. Having been an actress, she crossed over to the other side of the camera as executive producer of the feature documentary Crop Circles, Quest for Truth. In February, What on Earth, her new movie, won the 2009 EBE Award for the Best Featured Documentary at the UFO Congress Film Festival. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio from CropCircleMovie.com, Suzanne Taylor. Hi, Suzanne. How are you?
Well, hi. Oh, I'm very well. Looking forward to lovely chat about my favorite topic.
Crop circles.
Indeed.
Suzanne, how did you get involved in crop circles? You know, I think it's interesting when people get in their own, I'm a psychic, medical intuitive, and, I have my story. Then there are the UFO people that have their story. How did you get into crop circles?
Hey, I want to know your stories about crop circles. A little intuitive stuff, can go a long way. So, kick in here. Support me, if you know better than I know, you tell everybody.
Okay.
So how did I get involved? Well, I always had a really significant interest in consciousness and how the world thinks, who we think we are, what we think we're doing here. and a concern about the fact that we were getting it wrong and that the world was in real trouble. And so I've always been interested in what could change people's reality, what could get us into a place where we would think of ourselves as one humanity instead of these oppositional people who do things like make war. Oh, my God, how can we do that? We're so smart, supposedly, but we're so stupid. So how can we change the mindset? So I was always looking around for what the possible solutions could be. And, in fact, my house in Los Angeles is a gathering place for people who are interested in that sort of thing. And we've done many things over the years to expand our own awareness and to look at the world situation. And crop circles came along early on, in fact, in the late 80s, as just one of the many things that seemed interesting and worth learning about, knowing about. But then as I did learn and discovered more and more about the phenomenon, I realized that it could change mass consciousness, such as really nothing else that I know of could do except terrible disaster. I mean, if you take out half the world, the rest of it's going to have to try to figure out how to put itself back together, and it won't be along the same lines. But knowing that, that's really always the way the world has, I think, pretty much has been the source of massive change. Massive horror creates massive change. Well, no, how about trying to do it some other way? I mean, is there another way? And I saw that the crop circles could be a doorway to another way to see ourselves in relation to a much larger universe, as opposed to being the only big cheese in it, where we get to be so abusive and self-centered and arrogant and greedy. But if we took our place as just one unit among a much larger cosmos of intelligence, we're immediately in a much better position to sort of work from. And then here we are looking out to something else that's visiting us. That would be the most fascinating topic for all of humanity. So all of humanity would be in a conversation. It's not like today's news, oh, the aliens are here, and tomorrow, something else is going on. No. I mean, once we really accept the fact that we're being visited, which the circles certainly indicate, then it's a mind blow. It goes on. It's there forever for us to contemplate, think about, talk about, decide what we're going to do about it. Well, wouldn't that be good for us? What creates that kind of peaceful exchange among all people? Nothing. So when I realized all of that, I thought, oh, this is going to be my major focus. I'm still interested in everything else that can, help ourselves, help the world. I dabbled in all the other things, but the thing that I've really focused on is this circle phenomenon, and what can I do to bring it out to the world? Well, what do you do to deliver a message to the world? You make a movie. It's the best way to tell everybody something, So indeed, this is the second movie I've been involved in. This one is What on Earth Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. And this is my film. I'm the filmmaker on this film. The previous film, which came out in 2002, I'm the executive producer of. I put it together, but I was not the filmmaker, and that's called Crop Circle's Quest for Truth. So here I am, now I've got my arsenal of, that's a bad word, that sounds like a war word. I've got my dossier of wonderment, with which to, impress the world. So I'm talking on the radio, I've done a lot of personal appearances, showings of the film, selling DVDs. People go to cropcirclemovie.com, you can get 16 free gifts and an irresistible offer, bargain price to buy the DVD at cropcirclemovie.com. And, this is my real passion now. This is 24/7. This is kind of what I'm doing now. So I think I've answered your question, what got me going here, yeah?
And so you've been studying crop circles literally for, I'll say, at least 20 years.
20 years, a little more than that, really. It seems like yesterday, actually. I don't know. Does it seem funny to you, Rita, to be getting older? I can't believe it.
I'm not getting older. I'm taking on my dad's philosophy. I will be, he's 19. He has been 19 as long as I've been alive. You know, I like that philosophy. I think I'm going to stick with it.
Well, hey, I'll adopt that one.
I mean, I want to talk about the history, but before we kind of go back in time to where crop circles have started, has there been a lot of changes in the last 20 years, you know, as far as once you started getting involved? And can we just kind of talk in the general sense, you know, your involvement to where we are now?
Well, yeah, you know, all kinds of things have evolved. The phenomenon in the 80s was really, I guess in the 70s is when people were paying attention to it and started paying attention to it. This time around, we go back hundreds of years for little flurries of attention to the phenomenon, but this is the only time it has become an ongoing, doesn't go away, keeps on, you know, being a subject phenomenon. And in the 70s and prior to that, they were fairly simple formations. They were all circular, either one circle, two circles, circles with rings around them, bunch of circles. And then over the years, it has elaborated where we now have, I mean, the most complex shapes. In fact, when people see this movie, by and large, they are shocked. They have no idea that the phenomenon has become as outrageous as it has, where you're dealing with, you might say, some of the best art that, you know, you've ever seen. And it's a particular kind of art, but it's absolutely exquisite. It's designed with brilliant sacred geometry, mostly, not all sacred geometry, but most of it is. Sacred geometry is the geometry of the universe. You know, it's the way everything, plants and people, if you take us down to geometric shapes, it's the fundamental building block of the universe. And so as such, it's very harmonious. It's very when you see things that are designed along these lines, your whole being kind of feels, you know, this kind of sense of order and beauty. Actually, I mean, it's a gorgeous universe, you know. So the designs have elaborated over the years to where, you know, like, see my movie and you'll see people just gasp. They have most people, you know, some people who are following this, but I'm talking about most people who are not following this. Now, what else can we say? The designs have elaborated. Well, that's probably, you know, what are we talking about? We're talking about designs. We don't know who makes them. We're still in the dark as to the source or how they're delivered. I guess we've done some testing since then. There was, particularly when Lawrence Rockefeller was doing some funding, there was significant money put into lab tests, and they were done with real scientific protocol, whereby there are papers that were written that have been in scientific journals that attest to the fact that something's going on that is not possible. And the soil studies and studies of the plants and changes to the plants, biological changes to the plants, mineral, you know, crystalline structure of the soil that can't be but is. And so we've got some corroboration from the world that we take our reality from, which is kind of funny, you know, as crop circles are still, I don't know, funny, but crop circles are still a marginal issue. You know, most people, you know, it's kind of woo-woo stuff. Well, why aren't they paying attention to the world that they do take reality from, which is science? Because we've got scientific corroboration of the fact that this is not being delivered by us, but nobody's paying attention. You know, I think of it like George Bush getting elected. How did that happen? We were all watching. You know, we saw it right in front of our eyes, and now all of a sudden he's a bogus president. Well, you know, people are not paying attention to what's going on with the circles. And if they were, we would be in a different world, which is, of course, why I'm out there, on the soapbox, talking about it.
And I think that's interesting because in a lot of other, and I'll say woo-woo fields, when you talk about ghost hunting, you talk about UFOs, you talk about, a lot of the fringe sciences, I'll say, or not so quite sciences, there is no evidence. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's a lot of observation and personal experiences, but there's not anything physical. But in this situation, it is a fully physical event.
Well, indeed, which is why, actually,
it's in black and white, or should I say green and white?
Right. Well, that's really why I'm so plugged into the circles vis-a-vis the whole UFO field of activity, where I, am a layperson just like everybody else watching. But, of course, I'm watching probably more closely than most people. But if you're watching, you go, wait a minute, something's going on there. Look at all these credible people, particularly in the last little while, who seem are not bound by silence, not to divulge the secrets, and are now allowed to speak. And you've got government officials, you've got military people, astronauts attesting to the fact that that the unidentified flying objects indeed are not us. And however, with all of that field of endeavor, which God knows I'm sympathetic to and intrigued by, I found the circles much more fascinating as my own purview, because they're not just dependent on somebody saying yes or no, they're real or they aren't real. Well, then what? Here you've got a body of information that's being delivered. You've got a much more dimensional kind of phenomenon, and then you've got one that you can really study. These circles come down during the growing season, and they're there until harvest. And you can go into them. You can take them into the laboratory. You can't do that with UFOs. You can't study them. You can only, collect as much evidence as you can that they are real. So all you've got with UFOs are real or not real. Well, with crop circles, you've got a world that is, is dimensional, as you say, is there. So I thought, this is the one that, is worth paying attention to, because this is the one that you really could come to a conclusion about that isn't just anecdotal, but based on the thing that, you respect as truth, which is science, and you could come to the conclusion that we are being visited. So here we are, on my soapbox. That's it.
But it's a good soapbox.
Oh, absolutely.
So
my favorite.
What kind of things? You mentioned changes in the soil structure, but can you give us a little bit more meat and a little bit more depth into specifically what kinds of things they're finding in the labs? Well,
sure. One of the most interesting studies was the soil study, and they're very expensive to do these, by the way. They take samples from all over the formation, and they take samples in the standing crop. They do it with real scientific protocol, and then the lab has to go to work. Lawrence Rockefeller funded a soil study and on a particular formation. Now, obviously, when they get no results, when everything's normal, ordinary, no changes, then you go, oh, that's a hoax formation. But what happens when it's not normal? Well, in the soil study, they ascertained that the crystalline structure on the surface of the crop circle, inside the circle, was not possible on Earth, that it would be comparable to what you would find way down below the Earth's surface, where the pressure from the top and the heat from the bottom has cooked it and compressed it for millions of years. That's the crystalline structure that they found in the surface of this crop circle. Now, that's been written up. The big research site is BLT, Bacon, Lettuce, Tomato, easy to remember. Of course, it's not that. But BLTresearch.com has done all of the significant science studies, and they're the ones who have written the papers. And you'll find that on their website. I mean, really
And I'm assuming they are a big, credible, it's not like Joe in his backyard with the Bunsen burner, right?
Well, it's hardly that, but then again, it's not Livermore, or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a science lab, and it is, it does that kind of work. I mean, that's what it does. And, then there's argument about how credible is it, but it has no stake in anything. It's just doing this scientific analysis and it's coming out with and none of their findings have been challenged, by the way. I mean, whatever they've come out with, nobody said, oh, that's, made up or, inaccurate or fly-by-night. None. They just haven't been challenged at all. They're just not paid attention to. But, it passes muster as a credible enough source. In terms of the plants, there's lots of changes to the plants. There's cell structure changes. Again, BLT has all of this. And we show in the film, we try to give you the visual sense of what you can see that's the evidence of changes. Plants, grain plants are put together with nodes that are little connectors between sections of the shaft, and that's how the plants bend. They bend at the nodes when they go over to make a formation. And the nodes bend in ways that are really not bendable in young crop, where they're flexible and they give you right angle bends in crops like celery. Well, they don't bend that way. They just don't. It's oilseed rape is the first crop that we get circles in England, which is canola. We call it canola here, and it's oilseed rape over there. And it's like celery. There it is at right angles. And sometimes, by the way, the right angle is not at the ground. Sometimes it's one node up, which is several inches or foot or so off the ground. Just picture that. So you've got a plant growing straight up, and then above the ground, to some significant degree, your right angle starts. I say that because the guys who make the hoaxes do it with boards and they stomp them down. So they're not stomping them down at a right angle way above the ground, So you have those bends that are not possible. Then you have, in the older crop, there's not much flexibility because it's ready to be harvested, it's dry. And as the heat, which apparently is the force that's making the circles, microwave energy is what they've identified, which is readily available on Earth. How you get it harnessed to make crop circles is another thing. But that's kind of the essence of what the bending force is, or the moving force is. So in the older crop, we show you this in the movie. There's no place for the energy to go. It's not flexible. It's not, so what it does is it makes holes in the nodes. And we have this little phrase, we call them blown nodes. And they're very easy to see. I mean, that's what when people get into crop circles, the researchers, one of the things they start looking for, are there blown nodes in here? Because, again, the hoaxers don't get blown nodes. They just get crop that breaks and bends, or not bends, but goes over. But in the genuine formations, you will find blown nodes. And then you have other kinds of things like the seed heads. If it's an early circle in the green crop, it damages the seed head, and you won't get it'll continue to grow. Phototropism will take over. The plants will continue to grow, but then they will not have viable seeds in them. If the energy hits when the plant is ready to be harvested, it energizes the seeds, so that if you planted them, you would get bigger crop. And in fact, there was somebody who was making successive plantings, and he disappeared. His name was Steve Perkapol. If anybody knows him, he's from the Midwest. We can't find him anymore, and he was a farmer, and he was planting successive crops of, some limited amount, but enough to see what was going on, of seeds from crop circles. But at any rate, his successive plantings each got bigger. So those are
that
the kinds
is very interesting.
Yes, indeed. So it's funny, isn't it? All that scientific study and still, not making too much headway here with people paying attention. I will.
I want to ask a follow-up on the guy growing, I mean, not that he disappeared, but we won't say what happened, them little black suit people.
Ooh. I don't know what happened to him. I mean, he might have died, He was just one guy. He visited me in L.A. once when he was in town and brought me some plants to plant, which I didn't take good care of, and they didn't survive. but and then nobody can find him anymore. So, I don't picture anything, untoward having happened to him. Don't think I'm trying to suggest that he was rubbed out or anything, but he has disappeared, so we can't find out what's going on. So too bad. But anyway, these we don't. That was just an interesting kind of aspect to it all.
But based on what you observed from his thing, I have a question.
Yes.
So was he taking, the seeds that he got from a crop circle and then growing a crop and then taking those seeds and growing another crop, and they were getting successfully larger?
Exactly.
What it brought to my mind was, there's the period in history going back, 3,500 BC, 4,500 BC, where we had like this little teeny grain agriculture, little teeny corns and little teeny wheats, and then it had this explosive growth to what we see as current wheat and current corn and, current grain products that weren't that way in the quote-unquote wild form. And it just makes, it makes my little brain go,
Yeah, really.
I like them little brain humming things.
Well, really. One of the good things also about this whole phenomenon is it makes us think. It gets us out of our kind of rut of, whatever rut of everydayness we're in, and it gives us this kind of magic and imaginative and these things are so beautiful. And what are they doing in wheat fields? As somebody in the movie says, it just blows my mind, all this advanced geometry in wheat fields, So, this is just wonderful food for thought for the wild imagination that, us human beings have. So, well,
when you look at when the farmers have to deal with the crops that have been crop circled, I guess.
Yeah.
You mentioned that they're still growing. What about the following year? If there is a transformation or something that happens to the soil, you hear in the UFO community, like if there has been a landing of a spaceship that, there's some kind of a radiation or something that happens to the soil and nothing will grow. Does that happen to these farmers, or does it grow back?
No, there are effects sometimes, and in fact, sometimes the following year, there's what you might think of and what they tend to call a ghost image. You can see the image. This doesn't always happen, but you can see the image in the next year's crop of the previous formation that was there. And one of the farmers explained to me that what happens is that people grind the seeds as they walk around on these things, and it is a huge tourist attraction over there in England. I'm talking about England. We've had them in 40 other countries, but England is the hub of it, and that's where the tourists come by from all over the world, actually. Everywhere it appears locally in a country, it's a local event, and a big event, including the States, where whenever there is one here, the local papers will go mad, local media, but it doesn't make national news. Well, in England, that's, we're talking England because that's where my film was shot, and that's where people, as I say, come from all over the world during the summer. So the tourists will grind these seeds into the ground, and then the slugs will eat them, and then the slugs will interfere with the seeds from the next crop, and that's how you see the ghosts. I hear music.
Yeah, we need to go to break. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're talking to Suzanne Taylor, CropCircleMovie.com, and we'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
sensitive to energy? Want to explore the world beyond the five senses? Looking for a new career as an alternative healthcare practitioner? Then the Institute of Applied Energetics, Medical Intuition, and Energy Medicine training programs may be right for you. Our comprehensive curriculum provides students with a deep understanding of how to detect, evaluate, and transform the subtle body, as well as techniques for correcting energetic imbalances that may underscore a person's ability to experience radiant health. So if you are sensitive to energy, contact the Institute of Applied Energetics right away. Be a catalyst for changing the way healthcare is done around the world. Visit www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com and start your new career today. How would you like to live long and enjoy great health? How about creating solid bones and whiter teeth? Strengthen your heart and eyes and have radiant, youthful-looking skin. There is an ancient health and longevity secret that has been used for millennia in Egypt, India, and China that can help you achieve this. For the first time in the modern world, Pearlsium brings this ancient wellness secret to you. For more information about Pearlsium, visit www.productsforthesoul.com. Before we get back to the show, I would like to thank all of you for tuning into Just Energy Radio. Many of the people I've helped over the years were listeners just like you. If you're at a junction in your life, don't stand alone at this important time. Call me or send me an email. We can set up a private consultation so that you too can experience health, healing, and wholeness in your life. To find out more about the services I offer, visit www.soulhealer.com.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm Dr. Rita Louise, and we're talking to Susanna Taylor about her new movie, What on Earth Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. Her website is cropcirclemovie.com. So as I said at the beginning of the show, we are going to announce the winner of this week's Mind Yoga Question. And the winner of the Pyramid Code by Carmen Bolder is Eileen McCanley from Malvern, Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Eileen. Oh, one thing that I didn't talk about at the beginning is when we announce the question, and the first person that obviously answers the question correctly this week is going to win Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places by Brian Houghton. But everybody that enters every week will be put into a random drawing, and we will pick one winner a month, and that person will get a free reading. That would be a free psychic reading from the students of the Institute of Applied Energetics. So that's right. So even if you're not sure you know the answer, you might want to enter because you still can win. Anyway, let me bring Suzanne back on the line, and we're going to continue our conversation about crop circles, but don't forget, we'll be asking the Mind Yoga question later on in the show.
You know, I feel right at home here. I grew up in Malvern, Long Island. We just had a Malvern. Did? You know, that's, oh, my goodness. I waited for you to say it was my hometown, but it was some other state.
But it's close. It's Pennsylvania. It's still got that
right.
northeast thing going on.
Right.
Before the break, you mentioned that crop circles are primarily found in England. How were they, and I'm going to say quote-unquote, discovered? I mean, was it one sunny afternoon and some guy sees this thing in his backyard? I mean, how did the whole thing kind of, and I'll say come into the public light, if that's even a correct way to say it?
Well, you've got several questions going there. What happened in the 70s was that there were crop circles, you know, and they had been going on, who knows for quite how long at that point, because, as I say, they've had flurries every 100 years or so. They seem to have come and gone, although maybe it was interest that went while the crop circles maintained, and it was only in this modern era that interest maintained when they were stumbled across, you know, in this century, well, actually last century, but, you know, this 100-year due time. So in the 70s, some people got interested and found them intriguing enough to publicize them, spread the word, we had something that was an item, it was going on, and these people maintained their interest, and more people became interested, and now we've got a world where, modern communication makes things easier to quickly spread around the world, so this phenomenon, didn't go away, and so that's kind of the answer to one of your questions. The other question, I think, is how do they get discovered at all? I mean, how do you know there's a crop circle there? I think that was what you were inquiring about.
Well, that really wasn't what I meant, but
okay.
Go ahead and answer that question because I think that's a great question.
All right, there's different ways because the formations are in different kinds of locations. One location is you can see it. It's on a hillside. You're driving along the road, and the elevation is such that you can see the crop circle. I mean, they're in farmlands, but they're not exactly flat. Some of them are a little higher. Or people with good eyes, when you survey a flat field, there's a kind of a grayness that you see, a kind of a slight darkness. That's what the crop circles show up as when your eye is just looking horizontally. And you go, I wonder if that's something. Is it a cloud overhead, or is it, and that's how a lot of them are found. And now, also, we have early morning surveillance that has gone on some years, where there are several people who get in a car and they travel to hilltops. There's a kind of a route that they go on where most crop circles appear, so they get to the higher ground to look down. There are various hills because the farmland there is not like Kansas. It's not all flat. It's flat, and then there are hills in between. Mountains, not quite really, but, whatever they are, higher elevations. And so there's a route that those people go early in the morning to try to spot them. And then you have your airplane traffic. I think, people sometimes ask what the speculation is about why England is the hot spot. And one of them is because you've got this contained area where there's a lot of what do we call it? Not commercial aviation, but private aviation. Helicopters, private planes, flying all the time overhead. And now they know where to call. There's a new crop circle, so they'll call it in. And then there's a communication system now on the ground, thank goodness for cell phones and what have you, that the word will then go out to everybody who's in that system. We didn't have that when I first started messing around with the circles 20 years ago, and it was always like, and then they've got GPS coordinates so that you can actually get the information about where it is. It used to be such a scavenger hunt. Well, somebody said there was one that was spotted around here, and you drive around for hours to try to find it. Well, it's gotten, we've advanced the action with our technology. We can find them now. But it's very, I think the airplanes and the helicopters have sort of taken over as the source of information that gets the information, quickly delivered to the source that'll then spread it around. But it used to be fun, though. It actually used to be fun. You'd be in the car, and it would be like a scavenger hunt. You knew there was one around there, and sometimes you'd be driving down a road, and all of a sudden there's a pile of cars kind of squinched over onto the shoulder, and you go, oh, they found it. That's the crop circle, It's real fun over there.
You mean
really
your friends weren't sitting in the passenger seat with their dowsing rods going, wait, turn here?
Oh, do you know that story? You're speaking about it.
No, I was just making.
I'm going to tell you a dowsing rod story if I can.
Okay. Go ahead.
One of my favorite people over there is a guy named Michael Newark. He's a good writer, and he used to be an engineer. He's retired now, and he is a dowser. That's his thing. I mean, a serious dowser. I mean, he dowses to heal the earth, and serious ways. And dowsing is not nonsense. Oil companies, water investigations of serious proportion with our corporations use dowsers, and dowsing actually goes beyond finding what's in the earth. It's a well, I don't know if divination is the right word, but it's also, you can ask any question of a dowser as long as it has a yes-no answer. And the universe knows, and you are the universe, and let the rods tell you what the answer is. So my friend Michael, in some experiment, you might say, or attempt, not an experiment so much as he wanted to show the power of the dowsing rods. And he lives 90 miles away from this particular formation. He's not exactly in the center of the activity, and he comes in a lot, but 90 miles away from the biggest one ever, the one in Milk Hill in 2001, which is the size of 2 football fields. And he sat in the passenger seat blindfolded and with his dowsing rods. And just using the dowsing rods, where do I turn? Right here, yes or no. Here, yes or no. Right, left, yes or no, yes or no. And just using the dowsing rods, telling the driver where to drive, from 90 miles away, he got to that crop circle. Now, that's my friend Michael, and he's not shucking me when he tells me that story. Mm-hmm. He wrote it up, actually. I saw it written. I think maybe that's even how I met Michael. I think I read that story, and I looked him up. I said, Michael knew it. What was all this all about? So, power of dowsing. And then the dowsers get into the crop circles, and one of the things that they're doing is ascertaining whether it's a hoax formation or not by their methodology. And then they're fascinated by how the ley lines are, where the circle, particular way the circle is laid down, and they have a whole bunch of protocols for what they're discovering as they walk around these formations and have the dowsing rods either bend or not bend. And very, very fascinating. We show a little bit of that in the movie.
It sounds like, based on the evidence that we talked about in the last segment, that it would be pretty easy to tell a hoax from an authentic crop circle. Not
really, to be honest with you.
Really?
Particularly because the hoaxers have really gotten good at it. It was much easier early on. When you saw rotten geometry, you knew that was a hoax formation. But they've gotten good geometers to work with, and it's difficult to really know exactly how much is going on. There are some times when you can see the evidence very clearly, and there's other times when you really can't. And the way you would ascertain would be if you took the material into the laboratory. That would tell you, but of course that's too expensive to do for, every Tom, Dick, and Harry crop circle. So a lot of times when people trample them, the kind of pristine evidence where if somebody who was, let's say a researcher, that's kind of the generic name, croppies is the colloquial name, and researcher is what they tend to call all the people who are really plugged into this phenomenon and who write the books and do the lectures and take the pictures and what have you. And if they get in first, it's much easier to read the tea leaves, to see the evidence. But if the circle is really trampled and what have you, you've lost the opportunity to evaluate it most clearly, And no, unfortunately, it's not simplistic, would that it were, because a lot of time is wasted of whatever the work that's done on formations to analyze them, to see how they were put together, how they were constructed, what the symbology might be, worldwide input to ideas that people have, which appear on CropCircleConnector.com, where all the new ones are tracked as they come in, and then people contribute what they perceive about them. Oh, from the world of archaeology, I can tell you that symbol is blah, 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 and they collect all that information. Well, all this mind power applied to hoax formations is rather a waste of energy. It's so what the hoaxers have decided to picture or symbolize or what have you. They're hoaxed, That's not what really is of real interest, and yet it sucks up time and also creates a lot of controversy. The hoaxers are some of them are just incredibly nasty, and they don't just do their thing quietly. They do it noisily in the sense that they're abusive to others, and they get on all the chats, and then you don't know who the hoaxers are and who they aren't, and they start, they say just terrible things, and they knock the phenomenon, and, it creates this kind of swamp of yuckiness, and would that we could rid the world of hoaxers, just like terrorists. They're the terrorists of the crop circle world.
Well, it's a huge expenditure of negative energy.
Exactly. That's another way to look at it. But, you know, on the positive side, which, you know, nice to see positive and everything, they keep us on our toes. It's not like we've got this easy thing. We have to work at it. We have to really know our stuff. We have to be able really to authenticate what's authentic. And, you know, if we didn't have any challenges to that, you know, maybe we wouldn't really be as deeply as deeply kind of involved in it, to where when you get that deep into it and you've really had to verify and examine and what have you, then the findings that you have in your own being, you know something. You know, it isn't like somebody told you and, well, maybe it's true, maybe it isn't true. You absolutely know something. You own this. And that's the way, really, in a kind of a more enlightened perspective on how transformation happens or change of consciousness happens, it happens out of this deep conviction of there is another way or there is another story. And that just seems, you know, maybe it's all part of the master plan in some good way that the hoaxers are making us work so hard because, you know, it's sort of the answer to the question of, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Let's presume that they're quite intelligent and quite conscious. I mean, they're visiting us. We're not visiting them. And if you were going to be a conscious source that wanted to transform this world that you were visiting, you wouldn't hit it over the head. You wouldn't do it in a dualistic, oppositional way. You wouldn't argue with it. You would entice it. You would pull it, draw it out. You would pull it into a different understanding. And once it had a different understanding, it would really be effective in changing things. So I think that the hoaxers contribute to forcing us to do that kind of work, and it's not all bad that we have to do that.
When talking about crop circles, how many a year are there? 2 or 3, maybe?
Oh, no. In fact, we have less now than we had in some of the earlier years. There was a year when there were 300 of them that came in England alone. Now we have about, let's see, it's hard to know how many real circles there are, but I'll tell you of the ones that could be real. There's about 75 in England, and give or take 75, just approximate numbers, in the rest of the world, spread out in 40 countries. And that's been the last 5 years or so, I would say, that the close to that statistic. But, you know,
that's,
certainly enough to...
That's
it's a healthy
lot.
body of stuff. It's not 1, 2, or 3, you know. Yeah, you have a real... And that surprises most people. The media doesn't really tell you what's going on. And, you know, when people see the movie, they go, whoa, I didn't know we had such a full-blown phenomenon, and it's still going on? Yeah.
All right, we talked about England. Where else do people have crop circles?
Well, the of the 40 other countries, and there's more all the time. Each year, you know, Brazil has started to cook now. There's not very much going on in the Southern Hemisphere, but all of a sudden Brazil has a phenomenon going on. But, you know, that doesn't mean 50 of them. That means a few. The country that gets the most next to England that you could consider has a phenomenon of some note and a good website that's tracking all of it is Germany. And then the Netherlands also gets some fair number. And I think those are the only 2 countries where you could really point to and say, you know, they've got, and they both have very active study groups. Now, we have them here, too, in the States. And we also have a very active group. In fact, in the spring every year, there's a conference here that maybe 60 people or so go to, because the group here is adamant and ardent about whatever ones we happen to get, and they will take them all into the laboratory, but we don't get that many. And in the last couple of years, we've hardly had any, and maybe a big year would have been 10 or so, you know. But we've gotten some fairly good ones.
And is it because we aren't noticing them, or they're not being reported?
I don't
could
think
that
so.
be
Although
part
to
of
some
it?
extent, Rita, I think that's true, because we've got these huge corporate farms, and I think when they go to harvest, I think they find them at harvest, and then, of course, it's too late to do anything with them. In England, it's all little family farms. They're small, I think they mostly get discovered in England. And so I think, I don't know much about the other countries in the world, but in our country, I could see that, there could be a few more. But if we really had the kind of numbers that they have in England, we would hear more about them. They would be in the news more because they do make local news wherever they're found. And then us people who pay attention to crop circles, we've got Google alerts and what have you, so that we know when they're found. So I don't. Really England is the heart and the hub. And
well,
so
and with
delightful
corporate farms, I'm sure that I'm sure they wouldn't want half the planet walking all around and tromping on their fields, and they'd probably shoot you if you try to go out there.
Well, really, but I don't even think they find them, because that stuff is so mechanized that it isn't like people going, "Oh, look what I found," But who knows? You don't know.
I don't know.
You
I'm
know
not a farmer,
England
so
is the real hotbed. You just know that.
It's the hot spot.
The hot spot, right?
Is there any relationship, between, because Stonehenge is there, and there's this plethora of stone circles. One of the things that I was thinking about, and I'm going to come back to that question, because it was that, these are all these patterns that are being put into crops. And when I sit there and think about patterns being put into the earth that is really visible from the sky, not really from earth level, it makes me think of Nazca.
Oh, of
and
course.
Those ceremonial sites.
Yeah. Indeed.
And then in England... Oh, go ahead. I'll shut up.
Go ahead. People often bring up Nazca because they don't really know what crop circles are. And when I start to talk, they say, "Oh, you mean like those things in Peru?" And I said, "No, those are the Nazca lines. That's a different phenomenon, but the same in that you can't appreciate it except from the air. And who had air, to go up in the early years of the crop circles, and when those Nazca lines went down, which was hundreds of years ago." What in the world was that all? I mean, it's a fascinating phenomenon, but it's not alive now. It's over. We've got an artifact there in the Nazca lines, and, blows your mind. But the thing about the crop circles is they're happening. They're alive. Something is engaging us, as we speak. And isn't that exciting,
That's really exciting. I mean, that's
really
exciting.
And you were asking about Stonehenge. Is there any
about Stonehenge, because this crop circle started as circles. And then there's Stonehenge, which is a circle. And then there's the Salisbury Circle. I mean, they got circles everywhere.
Well, there's some debate. There are hundreds of stone. I think there's like 1,000 stone circles in the British Isles. People don't know. Stonehenge, obviously, the most famous. When you're over there, the Avebury Stone Circle is equally well attended and, well known. A whole different kind of circle. Small stones in a huge circle. A few big stones, but mostly small ones in a huge circle, some of which were broken up for a little village that's right in the middle of that huge stone circle. So some of the houses there are made of the stones that before they knew to save things like that, they just hacked them up and used them for building material. But those are the famous ones. Now, as I say, I think there's 1,000 or so in the British Isles. It was a thing to do. People built them. And interesting, wonder why. They seem to have ceremonial aspects, sacred aspects, observatory kind of phenomenon where the solstice comes through a particular point at something, that makes a real difference and whatever. But, when people ask about why England is the hot spot, and of course you have to speculate. I mean, nobody's giving you this information. But the nicest speculation that I like the most is because right there in that little area where Stonehenge is, and that's the circle area, there are lots of artifacts, and in fact that whole area was a manipulated landscape. The one thing leads to another thing, and they were connected like ritual pathways and what have you that all linked up into a big complex in part of it. And you can't hardly turn around without falling over something ancient and sacred, even a little tumuli, little burial mounds, little bumps, little this, little that. They're just all over the place in this little area where sacred ceremony has been done for, thousands of years. And so nice to think that the circles which one way you could look at why are they, why does the source deliver these circles to us? Well, we've lost touch with our own sacred beingness. We don't feel ourselves to be part of nature. We're alienated from nature. We use nature. We abuse nature. Well, in ancient times, people considered themselves to be nature, to be a part of the living sacredness of everything, and everything was. Look at American Indians, for instance, how they related to beingness, and I would think that the choice of this spot to land in this ancient sacred place, which had a whole different, where human beings had a whole different sense of who they were and what their relationship to life and the earth was, is a wonderful attention getter to us. Wait a minute, you've strayed from the kind of life-sustaining, really fundamental way you could be in the universe. You've got to get back to it, or else you're going to destroy yourselves. Now, I would think that would be kind of the message of why they're landing here. Because, in fact, all over the world, in those 40 other countries, wherever they land near something ancient. Like in America, they tend to land near Indian burial grounds. Again, kind of pulling us back to that sense of connection to the earth. So it makes, so people say, well, why England? Well, that little area is such a hot spot of all this ancient sacred ceremony that it makes perfect sense that the crop circles are there when you put the story together that way.
So you talked about Germany, you talked about the United States. It makes me wonder, in the East, China, Russia, Hawaii,
they're going
some
on
of the
there.
countries that, not the Western countries, but
right.
the ones further on the East. Do they get them too?
It's funny. I just met somebody from Russia, and chatting and saying, oh, we get crop circles all over the place there. I said, what? We have one in our international montage. We have 3 from the United States in our international montage. And we have one from Russia. It's the only picture I ever saw of one from Russia. And I didn't know. You don't get reports from Russia. And so this person was so matter of fact, oh, yeah, we get lots of those. And then we've had some reports from rice fields, China, what have you. But you don't really get, the consistent kind of significant reportage from those countries either. You just know they're happening there, but you don't hear very much about it. Mostly Europe and a bit in America. And Canada. Canada gets a fair number, but again, small compared to England. But significant also. They have an organization up there as well, a crop circle organization in Canada.
Based on the amount that is probably going unreported, it sounds like this phenomena is one, it's global. A lot of people think,
sure.
well, it's just in England, and it's just you guys got this thing going on. And actually, someone in the Sandy in the chat room put, I'm in the UK. The locals think that they're mostly people playing a hoax to bring tourists into the area. And I think that that's a belief that a lot of people have, is that they're just hoaxes for tourist stuff. But if you're having reporting coming from all over the world with similar, science going behind it, then I would think that maybe there's just a bit more going on.
Oh, really? Well, when you really tune in to all that is going on, people who tune in, people who see my movie, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. And they do open their minds. It's just that people aren't paying attention. They don't know what's happening because the media doesn't tell them. And one of the most heartwarming things to me is people who watch the movie or buy it or watch it with skeptics, their husband, their child, their parent, their whoever, and then I'll get these emails, and they'll say, my person watched it 4 times, and it's totally turned on, Here's your music, Rita.
Yeah, need to take a break. I'm Dr. Rita Louise. We're talking to Suzanne Taylor about her book, her video, What on Earth? The website to go to and get free gifts is cropcirclemovie.com. We'll be back after these words of Mark Monk.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
Go deep inside yourself and venture into the realm of the unconscious mind with my Meditating on the Kabbalah guided imagery audio CDs. Discover who you are and what you want in life. Meditating on the Kabbalah can help you to open, clear, and revitalize the energetic pathways of your subtle being. They will support you in your spiritual quest by helping you to access the profound insights and inner guidance you need as you work in alignment with your highest good. Let them help you to release negative thoughts and emotions and clear away any limitations that may be keeping you from experiencing your full potential. Walk down the path to health, healing, understanding, and enlightenment with Meditating on the Kabbalah. Order your copy today at www.soulhealer.com. That's right, that's www.soulhealer.com.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
Start the year off right by visiting livinggrocery.com. Experience the miracle of real nutrition as it helps you to lose weight and improve your overall health. Don't mess with pills or capsules. We provide the highest quality, all-natural organic foods that come ready to eat. And best of all, it's delivered straight to your door. Visit livinggrocery.com now and experience your own amazing transformation.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio, and thank you for staying tuned to the show and staying with us for the second hour. If you've been enjoying the programming today, please do mark the show as a favorite, and don't forget to keep listening for when we have our Mind Yoga question for the week, where you can win a copy of Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places, and a chance to win a psychic reading brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. Suzanne. Oh, we're talking to Suzanne Taylor about her movie, Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. The website is cropcirclemovie.com, where if you buy a movie, you get lots of great prizes, which we'll talk a little bit about that at the end.
Yes,
Suzanne,
that's our irresistible offer.
It's for out of this world.
Take a look. But when you get on that, the first thing you see is our trailer, which is so delicious. You know, it's a real treat. 2.5 minutes of sweet treat. So have a look.
Cool.
Movie.com.
What do you think's going on? You know, you said that you don't think that all of them are hoaxes. So you've kind of alluded to aliens. So is that what you think?
Well, you know, when people say or have opinions, I think it's extraterrestrials. I think it's from another dimension. I think it's from inside the earth. I think it's the future coming back, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? You know, we've never identified anything that can function anything like us, where we can manipulate matter and do the kinds of things that these circle makers are doing. We have to wait for them to tell us who they are. We're never going to figure out. I mean, there's just no way to figure this out. You can't. You don't have a category. The response I do make, though, when people say, and they really have opinions, I am sure it's another dimension. Well, okay, maybe. But what I want to suggest is that wherever it's coming from, I think you would have to presume that there are embodied creatures, because design is a capacity that is human at this point. That's what we know as thinking creatures. You need to be a creature to put together. You need to make choices. What design will you send? you need to construct it. Then they're very carefully placed. As we said, it's an area full of sacred sites, but the circles themselves are juxtaposed to those sites very carefully. Like if they have a direction to them, a point to them, or some such. Some of them are mandalas; they have no point whatsoever. But a lot of them have a directionality to them. They'll point exactly at the middle of some sacred site, or point exactly due north. You know, some mind has been involved in designing and choosing, and that's embodiment. That's creature. So wherever this is coming from, there are creatures. There are embodied creatures. Well, who they are, what they look like, who knows? But they are creatures who can function, you know, like designers can function. So I find that sort of like mind-blowing. Oh, my gosh, where are these creatures?
Not
I mean, it just
my
blows
bedroom.
your mind. We're not in your bedroom, you said?
Not in my bedroom. You know,
well,
the ghosts can't come there. You know, whoever's making the crop circles, they don't need to come there either.
No. No, but one of the researchers was sitting in a bedroom in the Netherlands, actually, where there's a particular person who seems to be an attractor for them, a guy named Robert. And one of the researchers, who's from BLT Research, actually, the one who does the science stuff, she was over at Robert's house, and all of a sudden, looking out the window, these huge shafts of light came down and lots of kind of air disturbance, but she saw these shafts of light. And she went to the window and then went out in the fields, and son of a gun, there was a crop circle there. Frequently, they never do see craft, by the way. There's never been any, you know, we saw a UFO and then there was a crop circle. No, we haven't had any of that. But what we do have is these light actions of lights that seem to come from who knows where, and that's a, you know, one way or another. They're not always shafts of light. There's sometimes whatever, all different kinds of light. But that was her experience, and we always like it when somebody you really know has an experience, so it's not fourth hand. Somebody told somebody that such and such, you know. No, I know Nancy. Nancy wrote this all up, and she sent it around, and she's a friend of mine, and, you know, she didn't make that up. So that's always good.
So has anybody actually seen a crop circle develop? I mean, you just accounted that people see lights, and actually I never heard about shafts of light. I've heard about like orbs kind of being seen, and then there's a crop circle. I've heard that.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. There have been eyewitness accounts. There used to be a Center for Crop Circle Studies until the kind of argument got so intense that they disbanded. The hoax is really at the heart of that, but also commercialism. You got human beings here, the ones who take the pictures. One who takes the pictures doesn't want the other one to get up in the air and fly, so sabotages her flying system, blah, blah, blah. Oh, people are still people, unfortunately. But wait a minute, now what question am I answering? I thought, oh, God.
Have they ever been observed being formed?
Oh, yeah. So when there was a Center for Crop Circle Studies, they had a little pamphlet they put out, and at that point there had been about 25 eyewitness accounts going back to the 1940s, actually, where they were collecting them. And they would just, you know, take this testimony from people who happened to be there when a crop circle was forming, and they all said the same thing. Lights, a lot of light action, no craft, a lot of sizzle in the air, a sense of disturbance in the air. Animals go crazy in the neighborhood, and then in about 6 or 7 seconds, the whole circle goes down. We show you a little simulation of that in the movie. But, you know, it's not a lengthy construction process. They just go down. And in terms of what you were talking about, the balls of light, the orbs, indeed, orbs are, I wouldn't say frequently, but enough times to, you know, be significant, have been spotted in the fields, skimming across the fields. And the next day, crop circle would be where they had been seen, you know, beneath where they had been seen. But, you know, there's a couple of really interesting pieces of footage containing orbs. In fact, if you were on my mailing list, just this morning, I sent out a potpourri of little bits and pieces, and one of them was to point people at this orb footage where, now you have to picture this, you're looking at footage and you're looking at people walking straight toward you where there's a crop circle. like you're standing in the circle, and you've got your camera, video camera, and people are walking toward you. You see coming from the right a ball of light. It's traveling horizontally across the field, heading for just this path that the people are walking on. They don't see it. They keep walking. Nothing stops their walking. But the ball of light actually engages where they are. That, you know, they didn't pass before the ball of light got there or after. No, they got to that spot in where they were walking just when the ball of light got to that spot. The ball of light stops. They continue walking. They don't see it. And then the ball of light continues when they pass by. Well, isn't that fascinating? I mean, you've got intelligent guidance going on. There's another piece of footage with a guy in a tractor, and something else like that happens as well. The ball of light obviously knows the guy is there in the tractor, and it stops and starts, and he sees it, actually. The guy in the tractor actually sees it. But the ball of light is under some kind of guidance. It's not just, you know, like a mosquito. Well, I guess mosquitoes are under guidance too, but whatever. Something is steering that ball of light, whether it's from inside it or outside. Who knows, you know? And they're small. They're maybe the size of grapefruits or basketballs. I mean, it's hard to know exactly, but you know, they're not gigantic. But that's one of the aspects. We show a ball of light skimming across the field. The camera happens to catch it. Sometimes, by the way, people who are doing videos or still pictures also, well, you could, actually videos for the balls of light. They get orbs in still pictures, but these traveling balls of light, they sometimes in videos, people don't see them when they're videoing, and then they'll look at their footage afterwards. And in fact, that happened at one of the conferences I was at. One of the videographers who was well known, he had a slot in the program, and he was showing this season's videos, and all of a sudden the audience gasped and said, "What was that?" He hadn't even seen it himself. It went across a corner of his screen, and he wasn't watching for it and just noticed it, but the audience saw it, and then he went back and played it again. And, it's an orb just traveling across my screen. You know, it's kind of nice to catch those things. Gives you kind of
have the orbs been seen by the naked eye, coming from the ghosty world? Coming from the ghosty world, they used to like orbs, and now like orbs are, they don't do orbs anymore because they feel like they're dust or bugs or whatever that are just picked up by the film.
No. That's only some people are arguing with the fact that there is something real. No, they're having conferences on orbs. No. That hasn't been discounted and discredited. Just an argument, just like everything, But this particular thing we show in the film, the videographer saw it and he traveled with it. It wasn't an accident, He's moving his camera to watch it go very quickly, but he's on it, and you can see that in the movie. So sometimes
that's
they do see
cool.
Them. Yeah, very cool.
I mean, that adds just a different dimension than. I mean, I've seen, my area is like the total woo-woo psychic world, and, people will show these pictures like, look at how much spirit is around us, and you see the background, and they're in some, like, conference room in a hotel, and you know that it's just, like, one dust-filled room. And
well, it is, this world is fraught with illusions, right, and this, perception.
Well, I was just wondering how much controversy.
Actually.
I'm just wondering how much controversy, the orb question has in your
over there. Over there, no, not at all. First of all, people do catch them. There are anomalies that people catch on, usually unseen, or no, sometimes they are seen and unseen. But a lot of still photography is catching orbs. No, people are very intrigued by that. What's going on? And certainly by the ones that are traveling, that are these guided orbs. I mean, that's a coup when you actually see one and catch it on your camera. And no, you can't really argue with those things. I mean, they're not butterflies. I mean, they're clearly not. They're clearly not birds. I mean, when they catch them on camera, there is clearly something that, in some ways, is a UFO, unidentified flying object. And no, that is not a source of controversy. How many are hoaxed? Whatever, that's controversy. But these balls of light, no, we don't have controversy about that.
Are there weird things that happen? I mean, I know, like, when you go to Stonehenge, they say that, you can feel the energy, being inside the circle and blah, 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 blah. Do people have those kind of experiences when they go into the crop circles?
Depends. People are different. There are people who are very kinesthetic, and, in fact, sometimes when they approach a circle, they can't get in. The energy's too hot. It just repels them. I mean, they wouldn't want to get in. Something is keeping them out. Then sometimes people who are in the circles have all kinds of physical reactions to them, good and bad. Sometimes people feel a little nauseous, but more often they feel elated, and then they feel tingly, and they feel physical reaction. I myself am a very mental person, so what happens to me is I never feel any of that physical stuff. I just go into awe. How can this be? Where can this be coming from? What's going on? That's kind of my reaction. At some level, it's physical. It's like, I'm dumbstruck, but I don't have that same kind of energetic reaction to them that some people have, and it runs a wide swath. We're all very different people.
What about equipment that you take into the crop circles?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Can you measure? I mean, I'm kind of, crop circles, I have a passing knowledge. But I'm kind of comparing it to my little ghosty world, which I think we have a couple of little parallels. When you go looking for ghosts, you run in there with your EMF meters and these meters and that meters, and you check for things. I mean, do people go into the crop circles looking for that kind of stuff? And if not, electromagnetic fields, what kind of stuff would they look for or potentially find?
Well, you've got all your gizmos, your equipment kind of stuff, and what happens to all of it. Not only just gizmos that, voltmeters and radioactive iso-blah-blahs and whatever, but you have your cameras and your microphones. And we've got some amount of that in the movie where you have a girl in the movie who says, I came in here with fresh batteries in my camera, and they're used. That happens a lot. We have several different stories we're going to tell you in the movie about that sort of thing to the people to whom it happened, So some kind of electromagnetic force is interfering with not the mechanical parts of the equipment, but the electric parts of the equipment. Or compasses, they go crazy in the formation. Cell phones won't work inside a formation. You hold the cell phone out over the crop that's over the edge of the formation, the cell phone will work. I mean, something going on with all that stuff. And then people go in with these meters of one sort or another. To be honest with you, it's not my category. I just know that the elemental thing is that if you go with your meter into a hoax formation, your meter doesn't give you anything. And if you go into what's a mysterious formation, your meter will give you all sorts of readings. But I've never seen papers or conclusions or what have you about exactly what it is that people are getting. And maybe what they really are just getting is this evidence of genuineness. The meter is giving a reaction to something, and to something that, a hoax circle just, keeps your meter flat. But I'm not a meter expert there, so I can't really go further with that answer.
But that's good. I like it.
Yeah. Okay.
I will make the assumption that people's cell phones work in hoax formations as well.
Well, they frequently work in the real ones as well. It's just sometimes you get these anomalous kind of situations that you never get in a hoax formation. The hoax formation, everything of yours will always work, except your meters, which won't give you anything. But in the genuine formations, there's really a fair amount of all of this interference with your equipment. And some of the stories we tell in the film are actually a little bit startling of, how really significant these and inexplicable these failures are, that something is interfering with equipment.
But it's not necessarily consistent.
It's not always. No.
Okay.
No.
I guess I thought. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's enough to be noticeable, though. It's not like, oh, it just happened once to somebody. No, it happens frequently, and it's always weirds people out, you know. What's going on? You know? But it does happen frequently.
Follow on to that. And so let's say you're in one certain formation and somebody says, hey, my cell phone isn't working, and then somebody else walks over, and you might not know the answer, but I'm just putting a hypothetical out. And then, somebody else walks over and they kind of stand in the same spot, and now their cell phone isn't working. Do you find situations like that?
I've never heard anybody do that, but what a good idea. Although then again, maybe people don't want to, oh, that's a bad spot. We don't want to stand there, with cameras draining, batteries draining. No, I've never heard anybody do that, but that would actually be something to do. Have to float that suggestion.
Well, to see if there are actually, hot spots. Well, it just is interesting because I just am feeling that there are, weird as this may sound, but, you start talking about things from not our dimension, things that are invisible. There might even be presences, or vortexes that are being created inside some of the formations that are sucking the energy. I mean, you said I should just use my little woo thing, but I could see where there might be literal hot spots where energy is just being drained.
Well, you could very well be right. We don't have any testing to know if that's true or not, but we do have one person who is, again, a friend of mine. I wouldn't put these stories in otherwise. He's a researcher who, when this was early on, way back in the early days of the formations, when cell phone didn't work, and he was so intrigued by that he went around the entire perimeter of the formation, holding the cell phone out over the standing crop, bringing it back in, and consistently around the whole formation. When he was in the formation, the cell phone wouldn't work. When he held it out over the standing crop, it would work. So, hello, what's going on?
And not even like 5 feet away, just like my arm is over.
Right, just holding it over, at the dividing line. You're inside the circle, you hold the thing out over the crop.
All right, that's a little weird. I mean, because then it's not like I move 3 inches over to the left, and now I have cell service.
No, it isn't that kind of thing at all. No, that we all know that. No, it's not that kind of thing at all. Whole different phenomenon.
That is cool.
Yeah, very cool.
They need to like it. Well, it would never happen in Texas because Texas is boring. But they need to have like a crop circle around here so I could go. That would.
I haven't heard about Texas. Sorry about that. Most of the crop.
Well, no.
Most of the ones in the States tend to be near the northern Canadian border. Not quite sure why, but they've been in other states. We've had them in other states as well. There have been a fair number of them. I forgot, when I read the statistic for how many have been reported from the States over the years, I was actually rather surprised. I was like, God, that's a lot, considering we hear so little about them. But unfortunately, I don't remember that number. So we're going to have to move along without my knowing something.
That's okay. One of the things that you mentioned, and I forget during what segment, was that some of the patterns have actually resonated with different people, as far as being like a symbol from their culture and tradition. And so are people starting to find intelligence, quote, in the designs, in the patterns, messages, something?
Well, absolutely intelligence. So something is watching us, knows our symbols, and is giving them back to us, with my thought being not so much that we should get a message from it, because that's a whole other category. We'll talk about that too. But my belief would be so that we get that we're being observed. We get that something is watching us and that there is another something out there. And I could just see the something out there scratching whatever passes for its head, going, why don't they get it? We just keep bombarding them with evidence that this is being delivered from something that's watching them. Why don't they get it, that we're out here? So I could just see that happening. We do get a lot of our symbols that we recognize. We've got a very specific menorah. We have a tree of life. We have Celtic crosses. Many different things that I know that. we know what those things are. There are symbols. But then there's all kinds of other intelligence. Again, source must be going, God, how many kinds of things, how many different ways, how many profound kind of recognitions are we making of them that they're not getting? How can this be? Again, when you get on the Crop Circle Connector, cropcircleconnector.com, the season's about to start. So when it starts, they will track every single one, and then each one will get a page, and then people who recognize symbology or meaning or what have you will write in, this is a pattern of the solar system such as it will be in 2012. This is where the planets will be. This is the alignment. Things like that's a rather simplistic one, but in fact we have that one in the movie. That was a 2008 formation.
I thought that was really kind of cool.
Yeah, it's the alignment.
So an astrologer, whoever, one of them.
Well, people know these things. They know about planetary alignment, and the ancients have known that from way back. That doesn't seem to be any secret. It always mystifies me how those ancients know all that stuff about astronomy and solstices and squares, blah blah blah. Precisely. I mean, were we visited by something smarter than us? That brings up that question. But the larger question that usually is asked, that your question relates to, is what's the message? Like, as if when we get all the puzzle pieces, we'll know what they're trying to tell us, or it's some kind of hieroglyphic and we haven't got all the letters of the alphabet yet, and whatever. People have that kind of intuition, or not intuition, but suspicion, maybe a better word. I think that's what maybe is going on. And I always say, I don't think that's what's going on at all. If they wouldn't need to be so cryptic if they had a particular message that we're waiting to, get the last piece of the puzzle. Wait a minute. I mean, that's just a little gamey, and each individual formation does have so much readable in it, so much cognizable in it, so much recognizable in it. And so my sense is, again, they're just delivering intelligence until us dummies get it, that something is delivering intelligence to us that is intelligent. And, if they could write it out in English in a crop field if they wanted us to really know something. And, in fact, they have sent us a couple of formations that do have binary code in them, that do have little messages in them. And mostly they're kind of warnings, watch out, wake up, that sort of thing. And people have translated these little squiggly things in a field that I wouldn't know, to make anything of. They just look like, some of the crop's down and some of it's up, and it makes a little squiggly pattern. And then people kicking in from all fields of endeavor who recognize information, and we've had people say, that's binary code, and then they've translated it. And so again, it's not anything particular. It's not like, look, this is what you have to do. It's just, hello, we're here, we see you, we read you. And I think that, that's what the whole phenomenon is doing, just patiently delivering until finally, the light dawns and we go, oh my God, we're being communicated with. So
I'm going to make the assumption that the Hello Kitty crop circle was probably not delivered by whoever. Might be a hoax.
Yeah, we show that in the film. No, it's actually not a hoax. A hoax is when the perpetrators are deliberately trying to fool you into thinking that they come from a mysterious source. We have advertising going on a fair amount where fields are hired, and then they come in with scaffolds and equipment and in broad daylight, and it takes them days to lay down whatever it is. And you're talking about the one we show in the film, which is indeed an ad for Hello Kitty. But that's a different, that's very, nobody's trying to fool anybody with those things. But what you notice is how much effort it takes them to actually get this thing to go down. And you thought, my God, English nights, they're higher than we are toward than I am anyway. And they're 4 or 5 hours of darkness in an English night. And how can they do it when the ones who are commissioned take days? Okay, your music's back.
Yeah, they're there. All right, we need to take another break. We'll be back with Suzanne Taylor, cropcirclemovie.com. after these words from our sponsors.
Just Energy Radio with your host, Dr. Rita Louise, will return right after these messages.
Move past the crossroads in your life and discover alternative solutions to your deepest concerns at soulhealer.com. So whether it's a physical problem, an emotional issue, a question about work, or troubles in your relationships, naturopath and medical intuitive Dr. Rita Louise can help you. Bring peace, harmony, and health back into your life. Schedule a session today. Visit soulhealer.com right away and live the life you've been dreaming of.
Hi, I'm James Alphayanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio. Listen to Dr. Rita's Soul Healer Moment live each third Sunday night of the month on Feet to the Fire. www.feet2fire.com for more information.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rita Louise, the host of Just Energy Radio and the founder of the Institute of Applied Energetics. Start a new career today on the leading edge of alternative health and healing. The Institute of Applied Energetics can help you develop the specialized skills you need to work as an energy medicine practitioner, intuitive counselor, or professional medical intuitive. Besides our outstanding technical instruction, our programs also support you in creating and building a successful business in this rapidly growing field. Be a catalyst for changing the way healthcare is done around the world. Contact the Institute of Applied Energetics right away or visit appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. How would you like to live long and enjoy great health? How about creating solid bones and whiter teeth? Strengthen your heart and eyes and have radiant, youthful-looking skin. There is an ancient health and longevity secret that has been used for millennia in Egypt, India, and China that can help you achieve this. For the first time in the modern world, Pearlsium brings this ancient wellness secret to you. For more information about Pearlsium, visit www.productsforthesoul.com.
And now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. And before we bring Suzanne Taylor back on, we have our Mind Yoga question for the week. And the first person that sends an email to justenergyradio@yahoo.com with the correct answer will win a copy of Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places by Brian Houghton. And remember, everybody that enters right question or right answer or not will win a chance to get a free reading from the Institute of Applied Energetics. So here's this week's question. In what year was the first recording of a crop circle made? And I'll repeat that, and I know Suzanne knows the answer, but she can't tell because she's muted. In what year was the first recording of a, recorded documentation of a crop circle made? Again, if you know the answer to that question, just send an email to justenergyradio@yahoo.com. Answers that are posted in the chat room will not be considered. justenergyradio@yahoo.com. Enter to win a copy of the book, Haunted Spaces, Sacred Places, or a free reading from the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's appliedenergeticsinstitute.com. So let me bring Suzanne back on, and we can get back to our discussion about
I'm not going to spill the beans, man. I'm not going to tell them.
That's right.
Really?
Well, I've been trying to pick a question
Don't ask me that question before you get your winner.
I won't. Don't worry. I got plenty to ask you.
Okay.
I think it's just been interesting to pick a question, that's related to the show kind of thing. But then it's always like, oh, yeah, but my guest probably knows the answer. So
yeah,
oops.
I won't tell. I'll never tell, except later. Tell me when it's safe.
At my time, 4:02.
Okay.
So that would be in about 25 minutes or 30 minutes.
Okay, we won't go into that.
Yeah, one of the things that you talked about in the movie that I found fascinating was the concept of intentionality, where people were like thinking of a pattern of a crop circle and then it magically appeared. I mean, not magically appeared, but the formation happened.
Appeared. Right.
Mystically appeared.
Mystically
Talk
appeared.
about
I was a little
that.
reluctant to put those in the movie, and we want to send them to cropcirclemovie.com to get this wonderful movie with gifts and bonuses and blah, blah, blah. cropcirclemovie.com. But I was a little reluctant to put these very odd kinds of synchronous situations in there, thinking, God, that's going to make it all sound ridiculous. I mean, that people think of something and all of a sudden it appears, but it happens so often. And then I only took the stories of the people that I actually knew, and you've got two different kinds of things occurring. You have people intentionally meditating, thinking of a shape, focusing on a field, and the next day, there it is in the field. And then you have your sort of casual things of people driving along in a car. They pass a field, and they go, somebody will say, boy, that would be a great field for a circle. We've never had one in that field. They're just driving, and the next day there's a circle in that field. And then you have your things out of the blue. One of the stories that we tell, and we truncate the story. You know, you can't make things too long because you have a lot to include in a movie. But my friend Denny, you get the little story where all of a sudden there was a circle in her backyard. But the longer story to that is that she was really when she discovered the crop circles, and she says this in her story. I immediately thought I had to be a messenger for them, and she has become one of the real mainstays of the circle world. But she was terrified of public speaking, and, you know, how are you going to broadcast about the circles if you're afraid to speak? She lived at the time in Santa Cruz, although she's basically English, but she lived in Santa Cruz here in the States. And somebody invited her, who was an hour away, to do a crop circle talk, and she thought, okay, I'm going to, screw up my courage and go do this talk. And it's far enough away from home that, if I fall on my face, at least
no one will know me.
In front of my neighbors, right? And so she went and did the talk, and rather proud of herself that she managed to pull it off. And then she came home, and there in her backyard was this little crop circle. And I said, and then we pick up in the movie, and I say to her, well, did the public discover it? She says, the public? I'm out in the country. Nobody saw it but me. I thought, it was like a little reward for her courage. I mean, is that sweet or what? But that stuff happens. It's like they're reading our minds. I don't know if they're knowing all of our actions, if we're, scratching ourselves or making love or whatever, or cursing. But when we think about circles, when we're in that circle zone, they seem to be there with us, and they seem to be able to acknowledge and deliver to us the evidence that they are, indeed tuned into our thoughts. I mean, really, that does sound ridiculous, doesn't it? But it happens. It happens all the time.
I think, from an experimental point of view, because you're always looking for the evidence, I think it would just be, are you familiar with Lynn McTaggart? She wrote the book, The Intention Expansion, and the Intent, and the Field. I mean, having different groups of people, and they all decide on an image, of a circle that they want to have manifest, and have like a group set an intention that you have the picture, blah, 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 you're filming. I think that would be awesome.
Well, to some extent it's happened. Now, a larger thing that you're suggesting, maybe she could, that would be interesting. I wonder if we could recruit her, since she's got that audience and what have you, to put out an experiment like that. That would really be interesting. And then you'd maybe have to monitor the field to make sure that, the hoaxers didn't get in there and deliver the goods, But that would be interesting. That brings me to another thought of mine, which is, above and beyond the crop circles, we are run in our world, in our official world, by what we consider to be scientific. The things we can put under microscopes, we can take them apart, we can put them back together again, we can make repeatable experiments, blah, blah, blah. But, of course, people like us, and maybe everybody now knows, there's much more to life than that. I mean, things like love, that doesn't go under a microscope, but there it is. things like consciousness, So, and then, of course, we have in our world knowledge of distant healing, focus on healing, even, far away or wherever. And people you have statistical studies that show that these things work, the power of mind. So I think to myself, how short-sighted are we in our world that the officials, the ones who can, get attention, command action to be taken or invite action to be taken, why don't they try to harness the power of the human mind? Why doesn't Obama say, okay, everybody, now look, nothing may happen, but we have some evidence that the mind has power. Why don't we all, and then decide what it is. What everybody at noon on such and such a thing, everybody think so-and-so. And let's see if something happens. And if it does, haven't we harnessed a force? Haven't we identified a force that we can use? Now, why don't we try stuff like that?
But that has been done. There have been studies done where groups of people would pray for a city, for reduced crime or the healing in a city, and there have been statistical drops in the crime rate during those periods of time.
Right, that's the Maharishi thing that went on that really showed that it did have a statistical. Well, I'm saying, why doesn't that's the Maharishi.
Well, he would just want to pray for Wall Street or something.
Yeah, no, but seriously.
Get the bailout money back, I don't know.
Well, why don't we try stuff like that? Why don't we try as a nation where we really could harness millions of minds? Try it. See if that can affect things. I mean, how did they build the pyramids? Maybe by mind, there are things outside the box that it seems to me, are very short-sighted in not at least attempting. There is some thought that in England they had this moment of silence at noon every day that was pretty widespread, and there was some thought that kept England from being invaded. I guess you can't ever prove a thing like that, but there was some thought that, that actually had a result like that. Well, again, it's no harm done if you try to focus mind and the power of mind that way. Why aren't we trying stuff like that? I don't know. We should.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that things, outside the government, people are changing. People are becoming more informed. They are, the bad, evil, you're going to go to hell if you touch this or look at this or explore this mentality is starting to go away or be aged out. And I think people are becoming more comfortable with the idea that they can.
No, I think I agree. I think it heaven knows we're moving in a more enlightened direction. But, we're not exactly galloping there. And, God, if I were running the world, I would try all sorts of strange things,
If you were queen.
If I were queen, I'd have an advertising campaign to change it from whoever has the most toys wins to whoever does the most good wins, and let's make that a national pastime contest for who can do the most good in the world. Just get us in positive kinds of endeavors and do it from the highest levels so that it's not just a little group of people who are, oh, isn't that interesting? They really got a result. But, make this major, harness the world. Try to do these things.
Even based on what... Go ahead.
Well, I have this blog, theconversation.org, where I'm always posting things that I try to turn the world around or open it up or wake it up or what have you. And I have a little section on column left that's outside the box ideas, which is just these sort of things. Why don't we try blah, blah, blah? Why don't we try da-da-da? And so anybody wants to get on theconversation.org, you can read those things. It's parked there, and I keep thinking, what am I going to do with those things? I got to do something with them. So it's kind of on my back burner. At the moment, I'm chained 24/7 to my computer, sending people to cropcirclemovie.com. That's my mission. So
that's your mission.
That's it, man. I did. It is my mission, actually. tuned into the circles in the late 80s, and in 1996, when I came back from England, I actually made a vow that if I was going to do anything with my life that most people couldn't do and that I could do, it would be to bring these circles to the public attention. That's when I really got serious about not just having an interest in them and producing programs about them along with programs about a lot of other things that could change consciousness, but I got really interested in focusing on the circles and fulfilling this vow I made to bring them to public attention. That's when I started looking for a filmmaker. So I've been at film on my mind since 1996, and finally it took me till 2000 to find a filmmaker who was interested in making a film about the circles. You can't just go, anybody making movies and say, you want to make a film about crop circles? What? So there was an Academy Award-nominated filmmaker who had a girlfriend who was a crop circle researcher, and he went to England in 2000 and got his mind blown and came back wanting to do a film, and somebody said, hey, there's this guy who wants to do this film, and I hooked up with him. And Crop Circle's Quest for Truth came out in 2002, where he was the filmmaker. Then he made his film. Now I got another film in mind, so then it took me 6 more years to make mine. I started then. I started in 2003. Oh my God, it's 7 years. 2003 to make this movie. Well, it came out in 2009, so it took me 6 years to get it all together to get this movie out. But this is my movie. This is my very personal statement about my passion, my enthusiasm, my intelligence, trying to blow people's minds.
And you won an award.
I did. The first time out of the box, we showed the film at the major UFO event. The UFO people like the crop circles. We're part of their world. I'm just a bystander in the UFO world, but I'm very happy that the UFO world likes my movie because they're very supportive of it. They buy a lot of DVDs. They have me on their programs. And I showed the film at the major UFO event here, which also had a film festival along with it. And we won the prize for Best Feature Documentary, which was really wonderful. You should see my award. He looks like an Oscar, only he's an alien. He's a tall, skinny guy. He's an alien. He has a little camera on his shoulder. So I love my award. He's so sweet.
That is so cool.
It really is. It's so cute, really.
If we figured out that these crop circles were actually being created by extraterrestrial life, or if we actually could own that really could be a possibility, as opposed to, how do you think the world might change?
Oh, well, I just think it would be the biggest change in human history. You look back to the last time we really changed our fundamentals, and you'd have to look back to Galileo, biggest ones. I mean, we've had women's lib, we've had slavery went away. These are huge, but they weren't as huge as what the crop circles might do, and as what happened the last time something that big happened, which was with Galileo. We talk about that some in the film, where prior to Galileo, the idea was, or Copernicus planted the idea, and then Galileo proved it, that we'd have the idea that the Earth was the center of the universe. Very, what's the word for that? Blah, 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 whatever it is, that humans are the big it. So anthropomorphic, I guess maybe might be the word. Anyway, so here we were with the center of the universe. We were running the universe, and then all of a sudden, we're not the center. There isn't any center. It's a huge, there's so many billions of stars and planets. I don't know how many we knew, but we found out with him that there were lots more, and that Earth was not the center of the universe. It was part of a galaxy, and we were going around the sun, and there were other planets, and then there were other galaxies, and what have you. It humbled us. It took us out of that sense of dominance, and the prevailing social structure at the time, we had kings and serfs, dominator, submissive. That was the way the world was, parallel to our worldview. And then after that, democracy is what came after that. We took down the kings. We still have kings, but they're token kind of figures. They're not dominator figures now. And it changed our whole social structure by taking us out of the center of the universe as a planet. Well, now if you take us out of the only intelligence in the universe, where we're still the big cheese at yet another level, well, that reduces us again to being part of something much bigger. And, you know, you see the arrogance with which humans act, this kind of a cruelty toward one another. The fact that we make war is just so unthinkable to me. How can people kill each other intentionally? I mean, you know, please.
It would give us like this huge inferiority complex. It's like, wait, they got bigger toys.
Well, no, it would actually make us appropriately humble to the place we play in the scheme of things, which is not the dominator place. And that, you know, dominator doesn't do us much good. It really leads to all the ills that we are subject to. So, you know, I see that we would become much more realistic about being just part of something. And then, you know, as I said earlier in the program, it would be a fascinating worldwide conversation that wouldn't go away about who are we, what are we doing here, what's the story now, what should we do in relation to the fact that we've got otherness out there, can we contact it? It'd be fascinating, and we would be in one important conversation, everybody equal in that conversation, and that would be so good for us. It would be so different from, you know, the dualistic way that we have everything set up now, which is so full of conflict. And so, you know, I see that as, and of course what they did with Galileo is, you know, did they like this idea that Earth was not the center of the universe? No, they put him under house arrest. Lucky he didn't get his head chopped off, you know. But it didn't go away, just like this wouldn't go away. If we ascertained there was other intelligence, it wouldn't go away. And so, you know, eventually it worked its magic, and, you know, we accept that new reality that Galileo introduced. It's not an argument anymore. We realize that he was onto it, and so it would be with this, and everything commensurately would sort of gradually roll out in all different kinds of ways from the ways that we have it now. And we really need something like that. You know, it's fingers in the dike now with all of the horrible problems that beset us, and yet it's our belief system that's really holding them all in place, this scientific materialism, you know, whoever has the most toys wins. I mean, you know how ridiculous it is that people are making millions of dollars a year and so much of the humanity is starving. Who needs $1 billion? I mean, seriously, who needs $1 billion? It's ridiculous that we've created this incredible separation between the low earners and the high earners. And this is not a way to run a world. This is a way to blow up a world. So we need something to change the basics. And, you know, that's why I'm so interested in the circles, because they can change our basic juxtaposition to the universe, which will roll out into changes in every way we see ourselves and everything else. So, you know, this is my great hope for humanity, actually.
It does concern me how the government, quote, governments, would try to spin it and try to have us fear it and try to, you know, I mean, they're already trying to cover it up, so we don't have to go there.
It would topple the power
but
structure.
Scare us. Huh?
It would topple the power structure such as it is that holds all this commercialism in place, Wall Street, you know, that has its interests at heart that are not the interests of the world per se, but special private interests. They would no longer maintain their dominator position. This world that, you know, was in peaceful conversation couldn't sustain that kind of violent competitiveness. And so, you know, the powers that be are not so happy at the prospect of everybody wants to sustain their position, the people in high positions. And, you know, they've got their, you know, force imposed on us to keep it the way it is, and they don't give it up easily. So you kind of understand why we're not embracing something that could change us so much, even though we're in such difficulty. But hopefully the nature of the fact that we get into deeper and deeper difficulty opens us more and more to the possibility of considering things that we wouldn't have considered otherwise, which is why I say that, you know, harness the power of mind, see if it can do something. We're in trouble here, you know. Try things you never would have tried if life were beautiful and peaceful and unthreatening to the survival of humanity, which is actually what is going on.
But that's because the thought forms and everything you watch on TV, that's the only message that's being put out there right now.
Really?
Period.
Well, it reinforces, the power.
But if you sit there and you watch like Star Trek or older movies, and there's not much. It's just really different. There's a lot more hope. It's not so dark. It's not so violent. You see visions of the future where people are successful and prosper in this future technology, and it really has changed to, the separation or, the Mad Max, everybody's over barrels of oil, they're on fire so you can keep warm. I mean, the image of the future that we're putting out there and our children are holding, that is, I think, the key, is very different than the one that we were brought up on.
Well, all your science fiction that opens to meta realms, we have a lot of attraction to that. And that, maybe prefaces or precedes, I should say, the actual, maybe that's the softening of us or the acculturating us to come into the reality of these different things. First you spin it as a fantasy, and then, you kind of live the fantasy, and then all of a sudden you're sort of more open to the reality of it coming in. We certainly love our science fiction, don't we? And although some of it is actually just replicates the violence on Earth, you get conflict in space. But you also have, other lovely things, Close Encounters and Contact, and, lovely images of the possibility of better out there.
Mm-hmm. We have 1 minute left.
Come on.
If people want to get the movie, cropcirclemovie.com, what kind of prizes, just real quick, what kind of prizes or free gifts with their purchase would they receive if they purchase a movie off of cropcirclemovie.com?
Well, I'll tell you the one I like the most is there's a fabulous book. I want to give it a plug. It's the new book. It's called Crop Circles, The Bones of God, and it's written by Michael Glickman, one of the stars of my movie and one of the original seminal people who's very clever and sharp and fun. And he's written this book about how he discovered what he discovered, and you're in the revelation with him. Nobody's written a book like that, and he's got the revelations such as nobody else has. And we've got the first chapter of that as one of our bonus gifts. And you've got, free movies. You have 16 free gifts, but that's my most favorite of all of them. And I suggest also that everybody go out and buy this book, Crop Circles, The Bones of God. And if you're on my mailing list, and you can get on there from theconversation.org, you can sign up for the mailing list. That's my blog. The mailing I just sent out sends you to actually purchase that, but you can read the first chapter if you buy the DVD and get the free gift. So there you go.
Cool. Suzanne, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
God, I can't believe it's 2 hours, Rita. How could this be?
I know.
Like 2 minutes.
Uh-huh. Zip, zip, zip.
Zip, zip, zip. Well, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thanks a million.
Thank you so much for coming on, and you just have to make another movie so you can come back on.
Well, track me and get in the world and have me back on with this one someday.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's Suzanne Taylor. What on earth? Inside the Crop Circle Inside the Crop Circle Mystery. Get a copy at cropcirclemovie.com. And so, in case you didn't hear the question, the mind yoga question, in what year was the first recording of a crop circle made? Send an email to justenergyradio@yahoo.com. Everyone that enters gets a chance to win. Next week, we have Akara talking about the greatest story ever
Dr.
told.
Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita. Until next time, remember, it's all just energy.